So for this video, I just wanted to go over some tips and tricks on controlling your needle and positioning it into the field. So whenever I do laparoscopic suturing, I like to have a driver in my dominant hand, and yes, I am left-handed. And with the other hand, I like to have a Maryland dissector. And the reason why is the grip strength on the needle driver is obviously very strong. With a Maryland, I can actually grab the needle and still have it sort of loose enough so I can juggle the needle around. And I'll demonstrate that more in a little bit. So let's say that you have the needle in the field and you want a forehand bite. So as long as it's safe to do this, what you can do is lay the needle in the orientation that you want. So if I'm doing a forehand bite, I want the needle to be facing me, all right? Now I know this needle is upside down and I'll show you how to grab it in a little bit, but the same kind of concept applies for open surgery. So let's say you want a backhand bite. I can simply lay this down with the needle facing away from me, all right? So let's go ahead and take a forehand bite, or at least set up for it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab the needle. I'm going to adjust it to where the needle point is facing me. And just with my tips open, if I press in the middle of this arch here, the needle will flip up for me, all right? So I'm gonna lock this out. And one thing about laparoscopy is that you lose 3D vision. So you always wanna take a biplanar view. So I'm rotating this needle in my hand and I can see that the needle angle is actually pretty good, okay? So let's do this again, but let's set up for a backhanded bite. Okay, so I'm gonna let the needle go. I'm gonna grab the tail. So never grab this and move around because you're gonna stab something. I would grab the suture, okay? And I'm going to now just lay it down on the tissue with the point facing away from me. And same thing, with my jaws open, I'm just going to push down just a little bit and the needle will come up. Okay, so even if it falls down this way, if I push down, the needle should kind of flip on itself and be in the correct orientation. So again, with this, notice when I'm doing my biplanar view, the needle is a little bit off. At least the angle is off. So I can actually reposition this if I want by doing the same maneuver again. So I can let this down again and just press in the center of the arch. This should be better now. Okay, so now I check my biplanar view. The angle is not bad, okay? So let's say that you're unable to do this maneuver. You can't safely take this suture and lay it down somewhere safe. Let's say that you're surrounded by vital structures, you don't have enough working room, or you just really need to adjust the needle in the field. So for that, what I suggest doing is that you pick up the needle with the Maryland dissector with the tips up, okay? So I'm working with a small screen here. So with the tips up, and now you take your driver and you grab the suture on the tail. And now you can control the pitch of this instrument. The pitch of the needle. So for a backhand bite, you pull the suture towards the floor so that your needle is backhand, okay? Or you pull this to the sky and it's forehand. So what's fun to do is try to juggle this like in the box, so down, up. You could do this all day long, but just remember, if I had a driver in my right hand and I actually locked and clamped this needle, it would be a lot more difficult to spin this needle from backhand to forehand, okay? Another thing to pay attention to, I've kind of talked about this before, is look at the reflection off that needle. See, so as I move this needle downwards, you lose sight of that reflection. So just know that whenever you can see this kind of reflection from the needle, it means that your orientation is probably where you want it to be because the reflection is pointed towards the camera. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click here and check my biplanar view. That's not bad. So there's a little bit of a forward cant here, but this actually works out well because you can simply just take a stitch just like that. Okay? All right, so let's review the needle handling techniques here. All right, so I'm just gonna drop this in the field. Okay, so if I want this to be a forehand bite, I'm going to lay this down to where the tip is facing me. If I want it to be a backhand bite, I'm going to lay it down to where the tip is facing away from me, just like an open surgery. All right? And let's say I want a forehand bite. I'm going to lay the needle down in the correct orientation, and I'm going to simply push on the middle of this arc right here, the arch of the needle, lock it in place, and check your biplanar view. So I'm ready to go. For backhand, again, I'm going to grab the suture. I'm going to lay the needle down to where the point is facing away from me. And same thing, I'm going to press on the middle of the needle, clamp, and check your biplanar view. So this is ready to go. And if you don't have the luxury of kind of dragging this guy one way or another, that's when you use your other hand, grab the needle with the tips up, okay? And control the needle by using the tail of the suture. So again, for backhand, I'm going to rotate the needle by pushing the suture down. And for forehand, I'm going to pull the suture up. Okay, so again, backhand, I'm going to allow the needle to pivot in the jaws of the Maryland and push the suture down. If I want it forehand, I'm going to pull the tail towards the sky and let the needle pivot in my hand. And again, pay attention to that reflection on that needle. So right there, that's probably where I want the needle to be. So I'm going to grab it. Check your biplanar view, a little bit of a forward cant. And yes, I did grab the needle too far back in the jaws, but you get the point. Okay, so let's apply this to real suturing here. And it might be kind of difficult to see the suture, but we'll try to make it work. Okay, so you can really suture on anything. And if you notice with my suture here, I've cut it extremely short because I'm not worried about tying or anything like that. My main focus here is to practice positioning of the needle and driving the needle. So again, let's explain this drill here. So I'm going to take a forehand bite on the floor and then take a backhand bite on the ceiling. And again, you can use whatever you want here. Sometimes I'll actually tape a Penrose string from the floor of the box to the ceiling and just practice bites up and down. All right, so let's start with a forehand bite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the suture down with the needle pointed towards me. I'm going to grab the needle in the middle of the arc, giving slight downward pressure, and I'm going to check my biplanar view. Okay, so this is pretty good. So I'm going to stabilize the tissue on the floor, working with a small screen here. I'm going to drive the needle. Looks like this towel is kind of tough. I'm going to drive, woo. There it is. Okay, so a few ways to do this. I like to go ahead and pull the needle out with my Maryland. So that way, again, I can use my Maryland to reposition my needle. Now I'm going to follow the curve of the needle. So I'm going to stabilize the tissue and obviously be careful on how much pressure you're pushing on the tissue. And I'm going to push down on the needle and follow the arc. And one thing to handle long suture when you're in a tight spot, use this pulling maneuver. Okay, so now I'm going to take a backhand bite. So I'm going to grab the tail of the suture. I'm going to bring it towards the floor, just like that. And then I'm going to grab the needle and take a backhand bite on the ceiling. So notice this, if I try to grab the needle here, it can be kind of difficult. And I see a lot of people struggling on how to grab this needle. But don't forget, you can also pivot the needle up like this by using your index finger on that dial on the instrument. So I'm going to pivot this needle so the butt end of the needle is up, and that allows me to grab the needle a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm checking my biplanar view, and this is not good. All right, this is not good. So this is a good sort of example on what not to do. So again, no worry, I'm going to grab my needle. I'm going to push it down towards the floor. And then I'm going to re-grab the needle. Okay, so that's a lot better. I'm going to check my biplanar view. It's not bad. So again, I'm going to stabilize the tissue, get in here, follow the curve of the needle, okay? And same thing, try to stabilize this tissue, usually it'll be up for you, whatever you're suturing on, and use your Maryland dissector, tips up, to follow the curve of the needle and draw this out. All right, so let's do that one more time, okay? So again, forehand bite down low, and then backhand bite on the top edge of this towel, okay? So again, I'm gonna grab my needle. I'm going to put the needle tip towards me for a forehand bite. I'm gonna push lightly in the middle of the needle to flip this guy up. I'm gonna check my biplanar view. That looks about right. So I'm going to take a bite. Okay, push from the back of the needle if I run out of room. Okay, stabilize the tissue. And with your tips up on the Maryland, draw the needle out, if I can. Ooh, that's a tough towel. All right, and then so notice you need to get a pretty decent purchase on your Maryland, otherwise this needle, when you try to manipulate, is gonna fly off. So now, again, tips up on the Maryland. I'm gonna take the suture and push it down towards the floor to get ready for my backhand bite. And again, it might be difficult to grab the needle like this, so don't be shy, get your butt in the air. I think I did this on the last one too. So again, this positioning is not good. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab the needle and just reset. Down towards the floor, grab the butt end here. Check your biplanar view. Stabilize the tissue and take a bite.